On Friday, the LA Thieves took on the Miami Heretics, where the Thieves were able to close out the series 3-2. This was a much closer series than I thought it was going to be. I anticipated it being a 3-1 win for the Thieves. I figured with how the Thieves had looked in their hard point that hard point was probably going to be the one game mode that they would end up losing, and then they would go on to win the rest in that order. But the Thieves actually came out hot. They ended up winning the map one on Vault, where they won 250 to 150. And despite it being back and forth at the start, the Thieves were kind of able to find their rhythm towards the second half of the hard point, where they were able to get a pretty solid lead on the second P4 rotation. They ended up going up 180 to 108. And that was kind of on the back of Scrap, where he went 34 and 22, a 1.5 KD. And the only one negative for the Thieves was Hydra, and he was only -1. Obviously, with Hydra, you would like to see him perform a little better. Obviously, when you see somebody who only goes -1, that's really not too bad of a statistic. But with Hydra and the caliber of a player that he is, you would kind of hope to see a little more from him. But really, the Thieves were able to kind of lock down, like I said, the second half of the map. Towards the start, they were really just back and forth pretty much the entire way. They were kind of edging their way ahead just a little bit, kind of throughout the entire map. But then it was once we got to the second rotation where things kind of picked up for them. And like I said, on that P4 on the second rotation was really where things clicked for them. It seemed like everybody was kind of starting to find their rhythm. That was even when Hydra kind of started to mount his comeback a little bit. He started off pretty slow, and like we said, he only finished with -1, so really not that bad. Envoy was the guy who kind of locked down the time for us on that map. He finished with 106 seconds in the hill, which is pretty solid, especially when he went 26 and 25. Ghosty was 29 and 25 with 79 seconds on the hill. And Scrap actually had 55 seconds of his own. So, like I said earlier, Scrap was kind of the guy who was doing it all. And he made some really big plays to help the Thieves kind of overcome their hardpoint woes, so to speak. But the Thieves ended up closing out the vault 150 to 250, and that takes us into the Protocol S&D, where I really thought the Thieves were going to be much better than they were. They have looked better at S&D than I felt like any other game mode, especially when you play against Optic and you were leading the series both searches up until the very end, where they ended up choking the 6-1 or the 5-1 lead to end up losing that map. So I really expected the Thieves to have a much better search than they did. They ended up losing this one 6-1, and it really just felt like they were getting a lot of kind of bad timings almost. It just seemed like they couldn't find people in the right spots at the right times, and Miami was kind of just doing whatever they wanted. And Real really looked solid. He was 10 and 2. I mean, like, you can't kill the guy. He was just doing everything to help them out. Obviously, when you win 6-1, it's a pretty strong difference there. And Lucky himself had a really good series, or a really good map as well, going 9 and 3, 3.0 KD for him, and the 5.0 KD for Real. On the side of Thieves, everybody was negative. Hydra was 2 and 6, which, when he's the guy that you kind of expect to get the first bloods, that makes it really hard for the rest of the team. And, you just can't really open the door at all. There's no room for, for anything after that. Like, he wasn't getting the kills that he needed to kind of break open the round. And Envoy did a little bit better. He was 5 and 6, the best player for the Thieves when it comes to kill wise. But there was just a lot of situations where it was like they weren't picking up like the routes. They weren't finding anybody, and that really hurt them. They were getting shot in the back a lot, and it seemed like they just couldn't find their rhythm on it. And I think Scrap had even talked about it post match, saying that they kind of just chalked it up to that, basically. They weren't playing as well together as they would have hoped, and they were kind of missing a lot of timings, and just they weren't in their flow that they needed to be. So they ended up losing that one, like I said, 6-1. That takes us to the Hacienda Control, where the Thieves actually were able to bounce back and take this map in a 3-1 victory over Miami, which was really solid because Miami, I believe they showed the stats before the map started. They were I want to say either number one or number two in defensive win percentage. And as I said, the Thieves won at 3-1, which means they ended up winning an offensive round. So with how good Miami is at defense, that's a huge win for the Thieves in the grand scheme of things. And it started off with a solid defensive hold. Miami kind of had control, I would say, for the first bit of the first round, but Thieves were able to kind of bite back and ended up winning on lives. And Miami ended up finishing the first round with 5 ticks, which was a little concerning for me, knowing that defensively Miami was really solid, statistically speaking, at least. But the Thieves were able to fight back, and they got 5 ticks on their own for their offensive round one. And kind of the same thing, really. It was the same thing for both sides. Miami started off really hot in the round one and then kind of fizzled out towards the end. Thieves basically did the same thing. They started off pretty hot and then they fizzled out towards the end, where Miami was just kind of able to take over in that moment. But then going into the third round, the Thieves had a really big play where, there was pretty much no time left and they were able to hop onto the B point, kind of slow things down a little bit for Miami, and were able to wipe them out, preventing them from getting any more ticks, where they only ended up getting 2. So that was a really big hold for the Thieves. At that point, it was like, okay, offensively, we only need to get 2 more ticks and we're tied with them. And then after that, it's kind of fair game. Whatever happens, happens. And the Thieves were able to lock it in for their offensive round of control. Hydra had a really big play where he kind of slipped the net a little bit, and with time kind of dwindling down, he was able to hop on the point. And then from there, the Thieves were able to get a couple kills and stack the B point, which allowed them to transition quickly over to A, where they already had a segment done. And they got all the kills from there. I mean, they wiped them clean. And at that point, it was a 2-stack, and you had Scrap and Envoy around the point, basically preventing Miami from even getting close. Ghosty ended up going positive 11, Scrap positive 15. Hydra was the only one negative at -2, and then everybody on the side of Miami was negative. That brings us to the Hacienda hardpoint, where once again the Thieves did not look very good. They definitely looked better than they did against Optic, that's for sure. But Scrap had another rough map as well. This time, though, Hydra was the guy who was doing everything. Hydra did everything to try and keep the Thieves in this map, and he just wasn't getting a ton of help. Scrap was 15 and 25, Envoy was 17 and 27, and then Ghosty was the next best player at 27 and 26 with a +1. And Hydra went 35 and 25. The only thing he didn't do was grab time, but when you're frying as much as he was, I don't blame him for not picking up the time. It was honestly not. I felt like the map was not as close as what the score ended up portraying. The Heretics it seemed like they almost let off the gas a little bit, where Thieves were able to kind of bring themselves back into the map, and really there was no there was no reason that the Thieves probably should have been in this map based on how everybody outside of Hydra was playing. Hydra had several just insane spurs of killing sprees, I guess. Like when I say doing it all, he really was doing it all besides getting the hill time. But Miami just looked more cohesive than the Thieves did. And that's something that we saw in the last 2 times that they played Hacienda, which obviously the one was during the match against Optic, and then in scrims against Optic as well. They can't seem to figure it out. And I don't know if Scrap has like a mental block on this map or something, but he's now had 2 not so great maps. He definitely picked it up a little bit in this one. Obviously, a 6 and 19 stat line is not as good as a 15 and 25 stat line. He did have 117 seconds in the hard point, so at least he was playing the objective. At least he was doing that. But the side of Heretics, Everybody besides Metals was positive. Lucky was 25 and 20. Real was 22 and 21. And Rencor, I mean, this guy had some crazy pop off moments. He ended up going 33 and 25, 1.32 KD. And really, I would say he was kind of the guy that really prevented the thieves from getting back into it. When the Heretics were up towards the end, they were on the uh, P5 hardpoint, I believe, or P4. I don't remember the exact numbers of them, but either way, they were up at the time. It was 237 to 197, and the Thieves had the rotation. They just weren't able to really hold it. And Rancor had a really big play to help the Heretics break in, which allowed them to get into the hard point really quickly. And it was, I want to say, just like Hydra was pretty much the last one alive, of course, naturally, with how this map was going, trying to just play his life and make sure everything went the way of the Thieves. And unfortunately, it didn't quite go that way when you have a 1v3 on the hard point and they only need a couple seconds left in order to close out the map. So really not ideal for the Thieves when it comes to the Hacienda hard points. That could be a map that the Thieves decide to kind of take out of their map pool. Scrap did say on one of his streams that he thinks that the Thieves are good at this map, that, it's just one of those things where they didn't play it very well, and he thinks that they can do a lot better than what they've shown. So, maybe that is the case. Maybe they are doing better than what we see in scrims, because really we've only gotten to see one set of scrims and they didn't play well in those. So, you can't really fault them for that. But that takes us into the Hacienda S&D. This was the map 5, where the Thieves were able to close it out 6-2. And the first round was pretty straightforward. The second round, though, Envoy had an insane two-piece. Well, he had 2 kills, but he had an insane 1v1 against, I want to say it was Real. He just absolutely tucked him. He turned the corner, fried him. That really put us ahead. I think that really helped the momentum. Thieves ended up going up 3-0, which was very similar, eerily similar, I would say, to the Optic series. They started off 3-0 there. Heretics were able to kind of fight back and get their round win. Thieves went on to win the next 2 rounds, where, again, sounding very similar to what was happening with the Optic series. And after those 2 wins in a row, which one of them was a very nice scrap clutch, he picked off the first guy on bomb, and then it was him against Rancor, and Rancor just ran away trying to go to the other bomb site, and Scrap was able to just get the perfect timing on it to where there really wasn't anything Rancor could do. So that was what ended up winning the second round after we lost. And then after that, Miami ended up winning their round, which put us at 5-2. That's where I say it was very, very eerily similar to the Optic match. And I was starting to get a little nervous because obviously we saw it happen before. I couldn't imagine seeing it happen again. But this time the Thieves were able to close it out. They ended up winning the last round. Hydra actually had a pretty solid search, which was great to see. He was 7-6, and then Scrap had another amazing search where he was 10-2. They ended up closing out the series there, putting us at a 6-1 record as of right now, I believe. So very happy to see that. But yeah, that's going to do it for the Thieves recap video against the Miami Heretics. If you guys enjoyed, please hit that like and subscribe button. And I hope to see you guys in the next one.